In Romans 8, we have two mentions of the phrase sons of God, and both are very consistent with everything we've looked at about the phrase sons of God so far. And in verse 14 is the first mention where it says, "For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God." Or to be led by the Spirit of God, you have to be born again. And the moment you are born again, it means you are a son of God. So it goes perfectly with John 1:12. And in fact, every mention we've looked at of this phrase, sons of God, is mentioned in a spiritual context. In Job 1 and 2, we have the sons of God presenting themselves before the Lord in heaven, and Satan came also among them. And Satan is an angel, according to 2 Corinthians 11, and he is the spirit that worketh in the children of disobedience, according to Ephesians 2. And then in Job 38, we see that the morning stars, which are angels, are the sons of God. Hosea 1, compared with Genesis 22, we see that the sons of God and stars connection. And then in John 1:12, we have reference to the resurrection of the dead and the born-again experience, which is a spiritual birth. And so in here in Romans 8:14, very obvious, for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So flat out telling you the spiritual connection there. But then also, the chapter has in verse 19, "For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God." Now this is about the resurrection of the dead, for believers being raised to glory. And the context of that is in verse 11 of the chapter, where it says, "But if the Spirit of him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwelleth in you." And then verse 18 reads, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." So, when the resurrection happens, that is when the manifestation of the sons of God occurs. So, we are called the sons of God right now, and we're given that because we've been born again. But it is not yet been manifested what we are going to appear like. That comes in the resurrection, the second coming, the rapture. It happens on the 1335th day, according to Daniel 12, if you study that out carefully. Well, that's a different subject. So, when the resurrection happens, that is when the manifestation of the sons of God occurs. So that is what we are looking forward to. That's what's going to occur, what people will call the blessed hope. So, but what else does the Bible say about the resurrection of the dead? Well, in Matthew 22, 29 through 30, we have an account of what Jesus responded to the religious leaders of the day when they inquired about the resurrection of the dead. And they were trying to trip him in his question, but he being the Savior of the world, gave them a response that I'm sure they were not expecting, according to later verses. In verse 29 it reads, "Jesus answered and said unto them, Ye do err, not knowing the Scriptures, nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven." So they, in this case, is believers, the saints. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. So Romans 8 says that the resurrection we become the manifested sons of God. And when I say Romans 8 says that, I mean that means that. Not that the text literally says that. That's just my commentary, basically, on what verse 19 was saying. So, and then Matthew 22:30, the saints are as the angels of God in heaven. So it's getting at the exact same thing. So we see the really obvious connection between sons of God and angels here when we see that the resurrection is described as believers being the manifested sons of God, and then believers being as the angels. There's your connection right there. It's telling you explicitly, when you look at these side by side, that they're the same thing. And then, but what does 1 Corinthians 15 say? Or just generally teach? That shows that we are going to bear the image of the heavenly, in verse 49, and as we have borne the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. And what is the heavenly? Well, he says in the context, there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. There is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for one star differeth from another star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And when you look at 1 Corinthians 15, you look at Matthew 22, and it even has a parallel account of this in Mark 12, where it says in verse 25, "For when they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given to marriage, but are as the angels which are in heaven." So, these are all getting at the same thing, the resurrection of the dead. Romans 8, 1 Corinthians 15, Matthew 22, Mark 12, and one passage just looks at it from a slightly different angle, but it's telling you the one part of a big picture. And it's all getting at the same idea that when we are raised from the dead, we're going to be the angels of God in heaven, we're going to be the manifested sons of God, we're going to be stars, we're going to have spiritual bodies, we're going to be incorruptible. All of these things that are getting at the same thing. And even 1 Corinthians 15 mentions, the sun, moon, and stars. And we look at something like, let's say, Matthew 13, it mentions how, believers are going to shine as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. And that absolutely means exactly what it says. It's something that we cannot even conceive of just how amazing that will be. Because when you look at 1 Corinthians 15, it brings up how the seed of something that's planted, just how different that is from the actual plant or fruit or tree or whatever it is you planted, how different that is from the seed you put in the ground. Just incomparably different. The seed of, let's say, an oak tree versus the oak tree itself, it's just so different. And you just can't even compare the glory of one to the other. I mean, one is just, it's dirt. It becomes part of the dirt once it dies. And the other is just so much more magnificent than the other. And how much more will the resurrection of the dead be when, we can already think of, humans, we might even think that some of them are beautiful now, but how much more in the resurrection when we'll be perfect and sinless and they'll be without spot and blemish, truly without that. So, I hope you see this. This is very obvious about the resurrection. So, sons of God, absolutely. The true manifested sons of God, that means we're talking about angels. And those are believers. So, there's not a distinction between, let's say, angels and sons of God. I mean, they're the same thing. Believers are going to become angels at the resurrection. The actual born-again aspect of you, which you experienced the moment you were saved, that is an angel itself. And we're waiting for our bodies to be manifested in the way that our soul and spirit have been, how they actually appear now. So this is just some of the amazing things you'll find in the King James Bible. And spiritual things are angelic things, because Hebrews 1 brings up a quote from the Psalms, and it shows how who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire. So angels are spirits, and we're talking about spiritual things here.